If we turn our backs and spit in his face, is God still gonna bless the USA?
On December the 31st, 1899, passenger steamer SS Warramoo was quietly sailing through the mid-Pacific waters on its journey from Vancouver to Australia. The navigator determined the ship's position and reported it to the captain. They were only a few miles from the intersection of the equator and the international dateline. The captain was playful enough to take full advantage of a unique navigational once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. At midnight, the SS Warramoo lay on the equator at exactly the point where it crossed the international dateline. The consequences of this bizarre perspective were many. The bow of the ship was in the southern hemisphere during the summer. The stern was in the northern hemisphere and in the middle of winter. The date in the aft part of the ship was 31 December 1899. The stern was 1 January 1900. The ship was in 2 different days, 2 different months, 2 different years, 2 different seasons, and in 2 different centuries, all at the same time. Greetings, Patriots. I'm Perry Green. Welcome to today's God in America podcast. From General Washington's perspective, he felt the providential hand of God in his life. He wrote to Samuel Langdon on September the 28th, 1789, "The man must be bad indeed who can look upon the events of the American Revolution without feeling the warmest gratitude towards the great author of the universe, whose divine interposition was so frequently manifested in our behalf." Let me share an incident that from one perspective can be seen as a missed opportunity and from another as a case of divine intervention. Patrick Ferguson was a Scottish officer in the British Army who served during the American Revolution. He's best known for designing the Ferguson rifle. During the 1775-76 siege of Boston, British officers reported on the deadly marksmanship of American riflemen. In response, Major Ferguson designed a breech-loading flintlock that could be loaded from the rear of the barrel, supporting a faster rate of fire, up to 6 rounds per minute compared to traditional muskets, while maintaining the accuracy of a rifle. The Battle of Brandywine, fought on September the 11th, 1777, was the most extensive single-day engagement of the American Revolution, where nearly 30,000 soldiers clashed across a 10-square-mile area encompassing about 35,000 acres. It resulted in a decisive British victory and the conquest of the rebel seat of government. However, the valiant effort of the Continental Army demonstrated that the rebels could withstand the full force of the British Army and endure, boosting their confidence to fight another day. Before the fight at Brandywine commenced, Ferguson and his sharpshooters positioned themselves in the tree line of a field. To their astonishment, 2 Patriot officers appeared about 100 yards away. The Patriots disregarded a request to dismount. After all, they were out of range of Brown Bess's. However, Ferguson and his men had the new rifle. The Americans slowly crossed the opposite tree line as Ferguson's troops insisted on permission to shoot an easy target with the new rifle. But Ferguson chose not to permit them to fire. His honor dictated that the Patriots posed no threat, and he wouldn't shoot them in the back as they retreated into the woods. There's a substantial circumstantial evidence that Casimir Pulaski and George Washington led the Patriots that day. It is known that they scouted the area that morning. Imagine what might have occurred if the sharpshooters had fired on the 2 Americans. However, demonstrating his character when informed later of their likely identities, Ferguson stated that he was not sorry for not having recognized them at the time. Major Ferguson played a crucial role in recruiting American loyalists to serve in his militia against the Patriots during the 1780 military campaign led by Charles Cornwallis in the Carolinas. His efforts resulted in a confrontation with the Patriot militia force at the Battle of Kings Mountain, where he was killed on October the 7th, 1780. God often works in ways we don't expect. In their jealousy, when Joseph's brothers attempted to rid themselves of him, they sold him into slavery in Egypt and deceived their father, claiming that he had been killed. Years later, through God's providence, Joseph became Pharaoh's right-hand man. Consequently, he was able to care for Jacob's sons and their families despite the brothers' animosity. When Joseph revealed his identity to his brothers, he said, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." We're often surprised when both good and bad things happen that we did not anticipate. God can use those circumstances to further His will and better us. Patiently wait for God to work, as Paul wrote in Romans 8, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to His purpose. And what then shall we say to this? If God is for us, who can be against us? Thanks for listening in today. Please like, share, follow, or subscribe to our podcast. To support us, donate on our website. Until next time, let's keep the light of God's providential perspective burning.